down, chop it down, chop it down, you gon' chop it down. Chop it down, you gon' chop it down. I just appreciate everybody watching. Watch him throw the ball, we gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through fourth and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Dive.
Sir. Yes. Sir. Welcome. What's up, JB? Welcome back to another episode of the Trap or Die podcast provided to you by 214 Media. I'm your host, Mual, Hen Dog Mual, Coach Mual, all that good stuff, man. The fellas are on their way. We got action tonight. Let's get through. Hawk, what's going on, Hawk? What's up? What's up with you? Let's get through the administrative items right quick, man. As always, if you all know, you know the vibes. But if you don't, if you're new, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We are still 24 subscribers away from 1,000. We are slowly matriculating to 1,000 subscribers, man. We gotta make something shake, man. We gotta make something shake. I don't know. Like, do I gotta use a cheat code and put like a clickbait video out there or something? I don't know. Like, what I gotta do? I don't know what I gotta do. Hey, Trapper Harley Mall, yes, sir. You know the vibe, big dog. Watch the Commanders Morning Show is live tomorrow. And if you all have missed it to this point, man, each and every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, barring some unforeseen circumstances or there really just ain't nothing to talk about. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I said 8 a.m. Good Lord. 7 a.m. Eastern. Tap in. You get your Commanders thoughts out the way. Anything and everything that you want to talk, you can go ahead and get some things rolling on that side on the morning show. My good man, Will, he hit me up on Twitter today too. Hold on, let me go ahead and get Dre in this thing right quick. Boom. Here we go. My good man Will hit me up on Twitter today and said, man, when you gonna have call-ins, bro? I got a call-in on the next show. And I already know what he want to talk about because he be in the comments going crazy over AJ and his thoughts about this goddamn team. So I know he got some words for AJ. And Will, whenever you in here, you go ahead and let me know so we can bring you on the show and you can say your piece about whatever it is you got to talk about because I don't even know. Dre, what's going on with you, player? How you feeling?
What's good, man? I was hoping AJ was up in here now, man. I wanted to rag on him about this little 3-game winning streak. See what he got to say.
Hey, well, you know, he ain't gonna have nothing good to say. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is, you know. But I don't think. See, and that's the thing, though, too. And matter of fact, let me get through the comments right quick before I continue. Hawk said somebody got some explaining to do about William Jackson and the lack of cornerback talent. We are actually going to talk about that. Jerry, and I see you, big dog. What's going on, Washington, D.C. Fan 87, HTTR. I love that you're keeping this alive. I love it. Admirable job, AJ and DC Sports. I hope I get a chance to get in with y'all. Disco, I've been telling you for 17 years, call in. If you want to call in now, you can call in. Let us get our opening thoughts out, and you can call in. It ain't no
Disco like to argue. You know what I'm saying? Disco be ready to talk some shit.
Hey, Jaron, I see you, big dog. Yes, sir. RIP to Takeoff, man. That shit blew me this morning because I wake up at 4 o'clock. Like, not like anybody really cares, but just that I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning every morning, and I'm over here just doing film because I was behind a day, had some other things going on, and like I put one clip out and I see Takeoff trending, I think. And I'm like, hold on, cuz. I clicked the jump because I saw a tweet, but I clicked the jump. I'm like, hold on, bro. And now you go through everything, and everything is happening real time. Like 4 a.m. Eastern is when, you know, things went down in Texas. And like we're hearing everything as it happened, and it's kind of crazy, man. Because I mean, Takeoff, bro, the Migos is an influential rap group from a artistic standpoint, and what they did to influence individuals and the music that they brought to everybody who fuck with them. Takeoff was that one that unspoken truth. Like it don't matter what Offset and Quavo did, bro. You knew whatever song Takeoff was on, bro, he probably had the best verse. Like that's how much of a dog he was, bro. And just from that side of things, I'm gonna miss that. And then from a personal side, man, I don't know what the hell happened. We understand that, you know, the situation, but either way, bro, like there's no reason for you to be at a bowling alley. And obviously, and I guarantee you, because it's impossible for them to not have any youngers around, and y'all are acting like that in the presence of an environment that's probably really healthy for everybody. That's just crazy. I'm gonna get the floor to you all. AJ, I know you just checked in, man. How you feeling? And welcome in.
Yeah, man. Nah, today's been off to a weird start. Like I couldn't even sleep last night, honestly. And then maybe around 3:34 is when I got a text about the situation. Um, so for a lot of the listeners, the last sports agency I worked for was actually QC Sports.
Yeah, QC. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Who managed the Migos, City Girls, Lil Baby, and so on. So for this, you know, it hits home big time because at the end of the day, you know, had a working relationship with those guys and utilize them in recruiting process and things of that nature. But aside from that, just Migos as a whole is big to our culture. The music that we listen to, the everything, man. Like they have an integral part to do with how a lot of these rappers got their break, their flow, their style, their presence overall. And Take was just one of those low key, chill individuals, you know. And then add on top of the fact that where this scenario happened, I actually have an Airbnb that I rent out and I stay at sometimes. Like I have another crib out there. It's like 3 minutes away from where I have my other crib. Like, so it's not a bad community, nothing of that nature. It's just, you know, unfortunately within our community, yeah, man, I think we just got too much ego, don't want to be embarrassed in front of women and things of that nature. And we tend to make um, tragic decisions in these key moments over small disagreements. And it's unfortunate that, you know, Takeoff lost his life in this process. It could have been anybody else. Other people were also shot, hoping a speedy recovery for them. But this is a major loss for the hip hop culture community. And just hopefully, you know, at some point we start to take a stand back and start to try to protect one another more, especially Black men. Can't be that fragile to risk your life and hurt your family, hurt others' families in the process. I mean, from the sounds of it, he was just an innocent bystander that just got hit with a stray bullet.
That's what I was about to get to.
And we live in a community, the Washington D.C. metropolitan area, where that happens often. You know, maybe they don't have the persona and the profile of a Takeoff, but we've been having little kids getting hit with stray bullets lately, you know, and dying. And I'm just hoping that this violence kind of, you know, takes a hold. But overall, my thoughts and prayers to, you know, the QC family, Takeoff's family, and everybody else that's hurting out there. Because I mean, as a Black man, man, it's challenging, bro. But you know, I'll pass it on to Dre.
Yeah, I mean, it was real sad news. It was like the first thing I saw when I woke up this morning and logged on Twitter, and I was like, "Oh, it's just going to be one of those days," you know. Then it's just sad when you see the videos just get tossed around and stuff like that. It's like it's in your face; you can't avoid it. And it's just, like I said, sad for everybody involved. I know Migos was a really big group. And you never really heard a bad thing about Takeoff. I mean, you may have seen Offset and Quavo in the news for whatever their different things were, but Takeoff was always the chill dude. He was just chilling the cut, and he just wanted to be with his boys. He held the Migos down. I thought he was like the heart and backbone of the Migos, to be honest with you. So I mean, like I said, it's a tough loss, and just sad to see. Like you said, AJ, these young people. I mean, not even just young people, just people out here in general with their pride and their egos, and the mishandling of their own emotions, and they're walking around with guns just ready to fire off at the smallest little disagreement. You just wish at some point it would stop. You just hope, something trends to the better.
Yeah. Well said. It's been tough for a lot of people. I know a person who's been, dwelling on that person. He a real fan. Like we talk shit about him, talking about he used to be a groupie and shit, following on tours and shit. But it's a tough day for a lot of people, man. But we're gonna go ahead and talk some ball for a little bit. Ain't no easy way to transition to it, but we're just gonna get into it, fellas, and we're gonna go ahead and start out with the news. William Jackson III, man, he got traded to Pittsburgh. So I have a couple questions to really kick things off, but I think the biggest thing that we can do to start this is really begin with Ron Rivera himself. I didn't listen to the clip. Yeah, I heard the interview on the podcast, but I don't know what clip JP Finley put out. I think it's the one that you sent me, AJ. But I'm gonna play it for everybody. If you haven't heard it, this is JP Finley and Ron Rivera on William Jackson III, their evaluation of him, and to that extent. So give me 2 seconds, and we're gonna go ahead and run that thing right now.
How did you guys arrive at this decision?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, more so than anything else, is that we looked at what we tried to do with William, and it didn't work. I mean, quite honestly, we didn't find the fit that we were hoping to find. We were looking for a guy that had a specific skill set that could understand the match coverages and play the match coverages the way we do with everybody else. And he struggled with it because he really is a man coverage type guy. So along the lines, during our evaluation process, we were wrong.
How tough is that to look at now, or is that the business of pro football?
That is the business of pro football. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. And when you get it wrong, when you recognize it, realize it, time to move on. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to not just move on for us, our sake, but for also give William an opportunity to go to a team that knows that they're going to give this guy a shot to use his skill set and exactly what they do specifically.
How did?
All right, so we heard from Ron himself about the situation. Said their evaluation was wrong. He made a projection, right? Said that the match coverage was something that they thought that he can transition into pretty seamlessly, essentially, in Washington, and he struggled with it. I'm gonna hand the floor to you all, but before I do that, like, my thoughts and my opinion on this one is simple. I criticize Ron Rivera a lot, and still to this point, because you don't get cookies for a couple of times that you do this. But I criticize Ron Rivera a lot for not taking accountability, and I think it's going to be hard for you to avoid it when something blows up in your face, especially a big free agent signee in William Jackson. This is your big money guy that you brought in, so I don't think it's easy to sit here and blame anybody else. Like, I think that'll be the foolish thing to do. But to that point, I acknowledge and respect them for just flat out saying our evaluation was wrong. We messed up. That's the first thing. And I guess I'll leave it there to give it to you all. And then I'll circle back with the conversation about, like, how significant is this on the scale of free agent signings with the Ron Rivera regime.
I mean, I think for me, I ain't even trying to hear all that. Like, because at the end of the day, you have way too many tools. You have a whole department that scouts players that's coming out of the draft, pending free agents, all those things. And anyone that has watched football and in-depth football and has watched the Cincinnati Bengals over their tenureship, whether it be with Mike Zimmer or even Zach Taylor, But I want to say Mike Zimmer, Marvin Lewis, whatever. William Jackson has always been a press man corner from day one. That is the book on him. If you wanted to mix match coverages, whatever, then your primary focus should have been the individual that you had playing corner prior, Ronald Darby, and signing him at less money. Like, to say that after you make this trade is ridiculous. Like, because there's so many other instances of bad personnel matching that we can pinpoint to that is actively on this roster. Like, the way that Antonio Gibson is used is not correctly. The time span that Carson Wentz was playing was not. He shouldn't even be on this roster if we put it in perspective. Other guys on the offensive line that have been added to the mix. Even right now with Kendall Fuller, like, they're not experimenting with him anywhere else on the field, whether it be free safety or slot, whatever the case is. And when it came to Carson Wentz, like, you want to focus on analytics and all this stuff, but exactly what he was having downfalls with in his career showed up again in Washington. And I just feel like, pat on the back for William Jackson and his agent. They got their bag, they got paid. But when you bring in a guy and pay him $14 million a year, you're supposed to know what you're getting in this guy fully. You're not supposed to try to change them to be something else that they aren't. This man has played in this league for a long enough time to where you should know ins and outs of who he is as a player. And that is why they were able to get, a trade partner in Pittsburgh Steelers, because Mike Tomlin and his team have seen William Jackson go against them twice a year for majority of his career. And they know exactly how they plan to utilize him. And I kind of alluded to this once they pulled him out of that Tennessee game. I was like, William Jackson will never play another snap as a Washington Commander. They try to pinpoint it on his back or whatever. I mean, his back is good enough that he passed the physical. So what does that tell you? He'll probably end up playing possibly even this weekend. It's just more so, they shouldn't have never even been in this position to have it wrong. I feel like they could have addressed their cornerback position so much better. And even if you feel like, we learned over the course that he's a press man corner, why not put him in positions to be more of a press man corner and change different things around him? Like, that is the point of coaching, is to adjust. And it just seems like that's not something that they necessarily want to do. So I don't know if we can necessarily give him credit for admitting to this fault. I think maybe when you can give him credit for admitting to a fault is when he has to admit that Carson Wentz should have never been traded here.
Yeah, for me, the first thing, the whole thing was a mixed bag for me. But the first thought I had was I was surprised that they got any kind of compensation for him at all. When it was first announced that, they were listening to offers for William Jackson, my initial response, and I think I even tweeted it, that I think the best they'll do is get a 7th round pick for him. I mean, because his value was so low at this point. And some people had countered it and was like, well, he still could play in certain systems or whatever. I'm like, but he has a pretty sizable contract. So any team that trades for him is going to take on a portion of that contract. Plus, his play has been talked about the last 2 years as regression. So no team's going to value that with the high pick. So I was actually surprised that they were able to get some kind of compensation for it. And especially even earlier in the day, I think I read a report that they were going to release him if they couldn't trade him by the deadline. So I was like, oh, wow, they were actually able to find a partner for him. Maybe he'll, change things in Pittsburgh. And then as far as that clip goes that, Jamal and AJ shared it earlier. Yes, I do. It's cool that, Ron acknowledges the mistake, and that they whiff, but that's just too expensive of a whiff for me. I mean, like AJ, I agree 100% with AJ in that, you have a personnel department, the same as you have a college scouting department, you have an NFL scouting department, they scout NFL personnel. So you should know whatever kind of system you're running that this guy wasn't going to be a fit. And then the other thing is Ron kind of using the same cop out of, William Jackson's a man corner. Yeah, cool, but not every teams don't play 100% man-to-man coverage all game. So, if you noticed on film that he was good in man but wasn't good in zone and film, you kind of ignored that and bypassed that. I mean, you know, so even the parts of the game where you're playing the one strength that he has, he still isn't showing up, you know, so nothing justified that signing, and it's just too bad of a whip. But I mean, I do appreciate and acknowledge that Ron is taking steps to show accountability, because that's been a big thing here. Now, you just hope, you know, for as long as they're going to be here. I don't know how long this regime plans on being here, but I mean, you just got to hope that they learn from things like this, and just sets you back. This is why you have to face the tough questions on a weekly basis. This is why your team starts off slow, and you have to, you know, make these big, you know, or these long or decent winning streaks just to get to 500, you know. So Ron and them has to, you know, be more aware, you know, of what they're doing in their front office.
Hey, did you guys take from this video that even in him trying to take accountability, it sounds like they also thought that they could change who this player is, because it's like, oh yeah, he is a press man corner, but maybe we thought that he could also do other things as well alongside of playing press man. Like, that's what we were hoping for. That, or am I looking into it too deep?
I was gonna say, like, this is something, and that's why I was actually gonna swing back on, just to, you know, make clear what I was saying. Yeah, I think what he was doing and what he's saying, like, sometimes scouting. So there's two things. I agree with one thing, AJ, or I agree with a couple of things that you said, but one thing in particular that you said, it's two things. So the first thing is, sounds like he was acknowledging or alluding to the fact that they were making a projection based on his skills, his current skill set. So like, they know what they have, and then they're saying, based on these skill sets, I think that he can also contribute to our defense based on, you know, what he can provide. And if he can understand the match concepts that we want to run, then we're in good shape. That's the first thing. The second thing is, to what you said, that I agree with, that I really agree with, is the money value. So to answer your question flat out, I just think they were talking about projecting and how he can fit into a scheme, which is actually just part of scouting. That's just what you do. And the second part that I agree with a lot with what you said, AJ, is when you're talking about a high value free agent versus a person where you're like, okay, he ain't really up there yet. Like, he's mid-tier right now. I think he could be a superstar down the line, or I think he could be a solid starter, like a Pro Bowl level starter down the line. We'll take this chance on this guy, pay him. Let's use the cornerback position, for example. We'll pay him like $5 to $6 million a year and hope that it works out. William Jackson is getting paid, you said, $14 million a year. You don't make that type of projection for that type of guy because you know who you have. And I think that's kind of the mistake that they made with him. There's other whiffs and evaluations when it comes to the bigger name guys. And I think Curtis Samuel, I think, is actually turning a corner in the right way. It was really just the injuries for him. But then you don't really have a plan for your guards. You lose a big name guy in Brandon Sheriff. You can't replace him. You can't adequately replace him. For those who follow me on Twitter, it's this guy who plays for the Steelers right now, James. Forgot his name. He's right guard. James. He came from the Bears, and he plays for the Steelers right now. And he's a really good young guard that can fit a lot of schemes. He was one of those guys where it's like, you could have gave him a shot, because the money that he got is way more valuable than what you got in Trey Turner and Andrew Norwell. But to that point, like, there's other whiffs out there. You let Ronald Darby go, what AJ said, when you could have got him for $10 million a year. Now, granted, he's having injury issues now, but in the moment, he came off a good year with you. You can't predict that he's gonna be injured the next 2 seasons, but he had one solid good year with you. You can build on that. And then there's other things too, and I'll give the floor back to you all, because AJ asked us a question, but that's kind of where I'm at. It was a projection. But when you make projections on $14 million, that's where you have your mistakes, and you can't afford to do that with $14 million cornerbacks.
And yeah, to answer AJ's question from my end, I don't know if I necessarily got that from the clip that was provided, that they thought they could change him. I mean, but as I kind of pointed out in what I was saying about it, I do think initially that they looked at his tape and probably like you and to what Maul was saying about projecting, they probably said, "Oh, well, he can work. We can make this work." Like, I mean, how much different? I mean, that's it. Just it sounds ridiculous to say, but it seems like they went through a process of just thinking that, yeah, because he did this good, even though we don't exactly run what he did, I think he has the talent or skill set to do so. I mean, and it was just a really bad whiff on someone's part in that scouting department. And like I said, it's too expensive of a whiff, especially at a premium position like cornerback. I mean, shit, after cornerback might be the most important position in the NFL today. And you whiff bad there. And it's kind of made your pass coverage suck the last couple of years, even though you supposedly have this daunting front line, this front four that we thought, could make a pass coverage better. And you think you go out and get a guy like William Jackson. I mean, even Kendall Fuller, they signed him a couple of years ago. I mean, Kendall, he's had a pretty solid
and they're
time
still
here,
struggling. But to that point, though, Dre, they're still struggling to, well, two things. They struggle to figure out where they want to put him. But now he's so athletically challenged, it don't even matter anymore where
exactly. And like I said, he was good for the first couple of years, but as a whole, that's a struggling unit. I mean, luckily you did find Ben St. Juice in the draft last year to kind of cover up the issues there, but cornerback depth looks really bad, and it starts with your evaluations of these players, and you just look at the William Jackson process, and it just kind of makes you take a step back and say, man, what are these guys doing?
Yeah, and I guess one last thing maybe before we pivot, my thing is you knew this coming into this season, into the 2022 season, you knew that this guy did not match the scheme. So, damn, it's kind of hard for me to touch on certain things publicly, but yeah, you knew this, right? And you should have probably tried to trade him.
Take your time.
You should have tried to trade him during the free agency period or the draft period, before the season started, before you went to camp, something, because you knew it wasn't going to work. You knew that he was not adapting to what you wanted out of him after spending a year with him. You should have cut bait sooner. Instead, you did it around the trade deadline, and you got a pick in 2025. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, like, it's just ridiculous how it all played out. And I don't want to be one to give him credit for taking accountability for that, because I just feel like at the end of the day, this is an NFL franchise. You put way too much money into these resources, these analytics that they want to harp on so much to get something of that nature wrong. Because one, William Jackson was never a ball hawking corner. So it's not like you were bringing him in here to create turnovers. I think prior to coming to Washington, he only had 2 career interceptions. So it's like when you pay a guy that type of premium dollar, you're expecting them to do what they already do, what they already been doing in the league at that same level or higher, not trying to force them into a new territory of learning something different. Like, you're supposed to just put them in the role that they already have. And when you get a guy and you sign bargain players like a Ronald Darby coming back home for a 1-year deal, a show improved deal, where either he's going to get paid by the team he currently pays for or another team, you're supposed to take advantage of that and get the hometown discount. Because Darby was willing to sign for even less than the $10 million that he ended up signing with Denver for. Like, he was willing to re-sign here. And instead, you go and make this lucrative move for a cornerback that's not known for being a ball hog, just a press man corner, and then a year and a half later, he's gone off the team. Like, that's crazy. Like, it's just poor personnel overall.
And to add on to something, to your point, Disco, let me close out the book on William Jackson. The AJ mentioned it. Washington is sending a 2025 conditional 7th round pick to Pitt with William Jackson in exchange for a 2025 6th round conditional pick. At the end of the day, I think I saw a comment. I think it was from you, Outlaw. What's going on, by the way, if I didn't say what's up? Outlaw, they're like a 7th and a 6th round pick. I don't think anybody's going to remember that in 3 years. So it's whatever. Like, they just got rid of William Jackson. I wonder what happened with the contract. That is one thing. Like, maybe we'll figure that out. And figure out who's responsible for that moving forward. If we're off the books, I don't know. We'll figure it out. But that's that. Second thing is, to Disco's point, Ron Rivera, sense of urgency, and also Carson Wentz that he mentioned. AJ spoke on it. Like, we always talk about it, but I think the thing is with this is we got to understand, like, that's the biggest one that I didn't mention when we said the bigger price free agents. Like, Carson Wentz is essentially like his free agent. Like, that is a big move for him. And that is a $28 million move for Ron Rivera. And when you whiff on these things, and it's and another one, Ryan Fitzpatrick, that is not his fault. He got hurt. But you signed a 39-year-old quarterback, gave him $10 million and said, hey, just stay afloat for a year. Like, do what you got to do, make us look good for a year. And he got hurt in a quarter. So I just think you got to understand the complexity behind this whole thing. Like, you, meaning everybody that's listening and watching, and we all know, we're all aware, or we should be aware, but this is a big deal for you to whiff on these guys. And I think it's more to the fact that, like, I don't think these fellas, because a person who's in GM situation, like, we kind of have, we kind of feel what we feel about Ron Rivera, the head coach, right? But I think sometimes too, if Dan Snyder and the powers that be is a person or entity that's comfortable with Ron Rivera as head coach, I think the steps in restricting him or making sure that he's more focused on coaching, it revolves around limiting how much power he has over roster control and general management and all that stuff and player management. And I think, like, when you make these big mistakes at this high of a price tag, that's when you start getting stripped of your GM duties. But he may still be around as coach. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts with those bigger name guys that you continue to whiff on.
Yeah, I mean, but I did want to touch on the front office aspect of it. Marty and Martin Mayhew and everything. At some point, you're going to have to identify a superstar. I mean, it may not be those guys, but like a kind of like a Kyle Smith, like a rising star in the front office. Like, who is that guy, in the player personnel department that's identifying this talent? Are they listening to this guy? You don't hear about that. Like, everything you hear about, it's either Ron saying, oh, I got final say, or you see Martin Mayhew signing off on these things. And I think as long as you don't hear anybody behind the scenes as far as those player developmental guys or, somewhere in that scouting department that, someone is a rising star in that department, you probably are going to continue to see these kind of, moves with this regime in place.
Disco.
What up,
man?
I'm in the building.
Right, yeah, you in the building, man. I want to give you the floor. Listen, everybody that's in the chat right now, everybody that's on the stream, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It's appreciated. Anytime and every time somebody wants to call up, somebody wants to call in, y'all gotta let us know, man. The floor is yours. We don't hide from anybody. We welcome all conversation. Disco, man, welcome to the show. The floor is yours. Talk to us, man. What you feeling?
So hey, hold on. Before Disco go, why it look like he in a Sunrise Senior Living community?
Why you joning? Why you joning?
I was like, Disco said, I just came on here to talk football, man.
No, I take that. I'm sure he get that because I be getting on him. Okay.
Him and Ronnie is nemesis. That's Disco nemesis right there.
Oh yeah. Well, see, man. Oh, anyway. But you know what, man? I put this in the chat. My biggest criticism, I want to like Ron Rivera, but my biggest criticism is he seems to lack urgency. He always seems like, I got this. Just leave me alone. We got this. And it's interesting. B. Mitch said something on his show a couple of times that one of the problems is that the focus is so much on Dan Snyder that we're not holding coaches and others accountable for doing their job. I think Ron Rivera, you bring in Carson Wentz, knowing that he needed an optimal situation with an offensive line, but yet you bring in two inferior guards, and then you say, go play. So I know a lot of people like you, AJ, and fair enough, are down on Wentz, but you didn't put him in an optimal situation, which is something that I don't know if a lot of people truly understand. Like, if you if you already know what he is, just like you said with William Jackson, if you already know what he is, then put him in a situation where he can succeed. I think Ron Rivera is, I personally predict that his GM duties will not be around at the end of this season. But at the same time, it's like, well, then who will have those GM calls? So, but in all fairness, a lot of teams around the league make these same errors. Look at what the Colts just paid Matt Ryan.
So many parallels with the Colts too. Like they promised Matt Ryan an offensive line. They ain't got anything close to it.
And hero Jim Irsay to some people. They just totally, said, okay, well, screw that money. We're gonna go with Ellinger. So anyway, bro, thank y'all for letting me get in here. But that's my thing on Rivera.
Well, you can stick around for the follow-ups. Yeah, come on.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some other teams that have missed on free agency, on free agents, but I just feel like we can't even focus on those other teams at this moment. Like some people, even maybe this offseason, feel like the Chargers missed on a free agent with J.C. Jackson out of New England Patriots. He hasn't been able to produce for them, barely has been able to play, sign a top deal as a cornerback. But I just feel like when you look in the totality of Ron Rivera's tenureship here in Washington and the personnel decisions, starting with Trent Williams, Quinn Dunbar, Dwayne Haskins being named starting quarterback from the jump, Alex Smith, Adrian Peterson being cut a week before regular season, Morgan Moses being released randomly. Like, it's so many different things that you can pinpoint to where it's like, what the hell was the succession plan? Like, what were you really planning on doing here? Nothing has been done here to address any of those things, and you don't have anybody that fills in those gaps that you replaced since then. And it's just frustrating for me being a Washington fan, and I keep seeing this dude make these weird ass decisions, and it doesn't add up. And like you guys said, who's going to replace, if you do end up keeping Ron, who do you end up bringing in as a GM to right the ship? Because you damn sure can't rely on Mayhew or Marty Herney. And if you bring in somebody from the outside who has no relationship or connection with Ron Rivera, you're just causing even more trouble to be created there, because they're going to be bickering on,
this goes back to Dan Snyder, right, AJ? Like, he makes this decision at the end of the day. And do you trust him making any of these decisions at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, it does go back to Dan Snyder. Even like, Disco has been talking about, maybe possibly why they didn't try to trade Deron Payne. And it's like, me personally, I wouldn't let this regime touch anything on this roster at this point. Like, at some point, Daniel Snyder has to step in and say, "Hey, like I'm running this shit for right now," because they don't really know. AJ. They don't really.
That's when you lost.
When I say that is because you're still we don't know what's gonna happen at the end of the year. Like, we don't know definitively if he's gonna stay here or he's gonna be fired. So if you don't know that about your coach, how can you then let them make personnel decisions to trade guys away possibly?
I think Dan does that though.
AJ, I think you made some good point. I think you pointed to some good. There've been some errors, but you make it sound like every single player that left, they should have kept. Because here's the thing: we know the whole Trent Williams situation, Quentin Dunbar, Adrian. I mean, so some players, and y'all know that some players are casualties of a administration change. Now we're probably in a better situation with running back than we were when we had Adrian Peterson. So I don't know if I'm going to look at every single player that left here and say, well, we should have signed him and we should have kept him. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Ron Rivera, the personnel man, is ideal, but I'm saying let's not pretend like every single person, because that don't work like that on any other teams, AJ.
No, it doesn't. But when you make certain moves of that nature, and then you bring in these guys on bargain deals and they show you that they're worth what you're paying them, and you could pay them a little bit more to retain them, why not do that? When you bring in Ronald Darby to a show improved deal, 1-year deal at corner, and he succeeds and he exceeds his expectations, reward him. DeAndre Carter, reward him.
Oh, yeah, now that was egregious because they're still
Right.
dealing with like Dax Milne. Cool, you can catch a punt. Can you make a play? But you can't make a play.
Reward these guys, and instead you're just making bad decisions. Like, even if you look at the trickle effect of the William Jackson contract, that plays a big role in now you saying that you need to cut Eric Flowers. If you give Ronald Darby $8 to $9 million at cornerback versus paying William Jackson 14 and then signing bonus and all those other things, you have more money, you have more flexibility to keep a Matt Ioannidis. You have more flexibility to keep also Eric Flowers. So that when you do go acquire this other quarterback in Carson Wentz, you still have pieces to the puzzle instead of trying to bring in bargain deals and below value players in Trey Turner and Andrew Norwell. That's where I feel like you just have to look at it from a full scope. Not every guy should have stayed here, you know. At the end of the day, I feel like an elite tackle in a Trent Williams, you need to try everything in your power to render that, to fix that relationship and make it worthwhile. And if you are going to move on from him, please get more than the 5th round and a 3rd round pick.
That wasn't. Like, was that Ron Rivera? Or was that Bruce Allen?
Well, Ron made the trade
Rivera.
Eventually.
Yeah, that was Ron because Trent wanted to still stay here, even with Ron being the new head coach and Bruce being out the picture.
Yeah, I think his issue
was
Bruce, right?
Then it was money. It was money after a while.
He don't have beef.
Money.
Yeah, he don't have beef with Daniel Snyder. It boiled down to money, and Ron kind of put his foot down. And the same thing with Quinn Dunbar. I felt like Quinn Dunbar was wrong, and I felt like he got exactly what he should have out of the situation. I mean, you can't come and ask for a new deal in that situation, and now we see him kind of out the league or in and out the league. But certain guys, you got to make things work, and I just feel like he's above his head in this position. And to Dre's point, it is to blame on Daniel Snyder for even giving him this opportunity, or maybe we should be blaming Joe Gibbs.
We didn't say that a few times.
Here's something though. I mean, I know you all keep mentioning that he's bargain hunting and cutting guys like Eric Flowers to bring in, I guess with lesser players, what we all know to be lesser players now that we're watching. But that's the thing that actually bothers me about Ron, is that I don't think he looks at it through the lenses that you all are looking at it through by saying that, he's bringing in these lesser players. I think he actually has the arrogance to think that there won't be any drop off for the guys that he picked. I think he truly believes in the guys that he picks, and these guys are going to be something going forward. In his mind, I think when they got rid of Eric Flowers, that he was thinking, oh, we can get a better guy. I had a better guard than Andrew Norwell, and we could pay him cheaper. Let's get him. And to me, like I said, that's the arrogance that it seems like it comes with those type of moves. But those type of moves have been biting them in the ass. And you hope that with this comes some humility, and he kind of gets humbled by this. I mean, if he's going to be here, because like I said, I don't know what Daniel Snyder's thought process is. I don't know, if Daniel Snyder is looking at it from AJ's standpoint, whereas he's not letting him touch anything because he's not going to be here next year. I mean, who knows? Dan probably is keeping Ron around next year. So if that's the case, I mean, we have to just hope that this guy gets humbled at some point by some of these things that's bit him in the ass.
I do think, though, it's worth crediting, though, there are a lot of pretty decent young pieces on the team. Now, I'm not, the roster's not, I'm sorry, Martin, the roster's not total trash. So of course, the whole guard situation is putrid. But some of these young cats, Derek Forrest, Cam Curl, there are some young pieces here.
Now, to your point, I was going to agree. I think there's a difference, and I think we're all noticing now. I will say this: it's to be determined, but for now, the way they have been able to so far hit on some of their draft picks, like the middle round draft picks, is very important. They were able to hit on what seems to be Jahan Dotson. He's hurt right now. That's unfortunate. And it's crazy because I think I remember him saying he's never got hurt before, like since high school. So this is like so weird for him, but like he looks like a stud. I believe in him based on what I saw. Obviously you have your Antonio Gibson, your Cam Curl, as you mentioned, Disco. Derek Forrest is he's playing good. I'm not gonna give a grade of good to Jamin Davis, but you see him playing like a solid, a stable linebacker, and you're hoping that that can transition into a person who can solidify a defense. Like his first outing without Cole Holcomb, it was him and Cam Curl, and he played 100% of the snaps defensively. Like that's a big responsibility for Jamin Davis, and he was able to hold his own and stay on that field for the defense. Who else are we missing? I feel like Benjamin St. Juste. How can I forget Ben? And the list goes on for some of these guys. But also they're trusting some of these younger guys too in particular roles. Brian Robinson is a rookie, but he's getting a lot of the carries. Now, running back is not like a too complex of a position. There's a lot that you got to learn, but they're putting a lot of trust in him as a rookie. And I'm sure there's other people that I'm missing off the top of my head. But to Disco's point, the younger guys is somebody where you're like, okay, the success rate is probably a little bit higher than the free agents that they've been able to bring in Washington.
Hey, I actually wanted to bring up something since we are on this subject of bringing in players that's coming in. And this was something I was actually thinking about because this guy's name is actually been getting thrown out a lot recently. And he's a signing, recent signing, John Ridgeway. And it made me think with his emerging play, is that what they expected out of Federic Mathis when they drafted him in the second round? And does this kind of, make make you scratch your head at the Federic Mathis pick even more? That, a lot of people were saying when they drafted him, a lot of people thought they overdrafted him because you could find that type of player in the fifth round. And Ridgeway was actually drafted in the fifth round, then cut by the Cowboys this year, and they signed him. So you got a player now that kind of makes his status in question next year, Federic Mathis, as to how high he's going to be in the depth chart. I mean, assuming they keep Deron Payne.
I mean, I think that, I think sometimes we're a little tough on rookies, and whether, because, I remember hearing some grumblings about people were ready to give up on John Allen. And I'm not saying Mathis is John Allen. I'm just saying that, he got hurt in the first game. So I think the Ridgeway pickup seems to be like a really good pickup. And also F.A. Obata. So, I mean, they got some pieces along that lines. I hear a lot about, have we really missed Tim Settle? Now, if you could say that you missed him from paying him, maybe letting Deron go and paying Settle, but does Settle give you the same? Is he pushing the pocket and beasting like Deron Payne? So Mathis, he got hurt. So I just think it's way too soon.
I'll just quickly say, I think if anything, what happens because of Mathis' injury, I think with the emergence of the new guy Ridgeway, I just think it helps his recovery time. Like you don't have to rush him back because they play the same type of style. They're asked to do the same thing. They're in the same role. They want him to control that in between the center and guard or over top of the center. And you'll be fine as long as you can hold that down. And so to that point, Dre, I just think it's somewhat of a situation where they don't have to rush him back, but also they probably could get a little versatile in certain packages with both of those guys when Federian comes back. So there's some ways to I guess maneuver if I had to guess.
Yeah,
it was a mistake. It was a mistake in drafting Mathis in the second round. Because that type of player you can get later on. You can even get in free agency. Like, you actually needed talent at that second round pick. I mean, there was Jaquan Brisker, who is now the safety for the Bears. You could have got him at that pick. You could have did so many different things at that pick, but, I don't really understand what this regime wants to do overall.
I think the pick that we really missed, I think the pick that I guess maybe we could say we whiffed on that really hurt is the non-emergence of Sadiq Charles. I think that pick, he was highly touted, and had he worked out consistently, then you have a natural plug and play after Brandon Sheriff. But he's in and out of the lineup. I think missing on him kind of hurt a little bit too.
That's valid. And it's looking to the point where they're talking about trying to find a place for Cosme on the interior when he's healthy. So that kind of shows you the rumors. It kind of shows you where they are with Sadiq after his a couple starts here. Fellas, any last words on this mob? I think we're good for this show. It was a really good conversation just about the overall aspect of signings and this free agent. William Jackson obviously is no longer in Washington. They moved on. Minnesota is around the corner. We're going to be talking about them for sure on Thursday, obviously. What are we missing? Are we missing anything?
I think I would just chime in real quick before we end the show. I wish that this front office would have went after Roquan Smith, especially seeing what he went for.
Oh,
I just don't understand what's the long-term plan at that middle linebacker position or linebacker position as a whole. I think that would have been a steal to get him for a second-round pick and possibly re-up him next year. But yeah, I don't really know.
well, who you would
I want to say,
what would you give him up for? I mean, what would you would have given him? It was just you would just gave him a draft pick.
yeah, I would have gave them a second-round pick. I would have offered something. I would have been in that scenario to be able to acquire him, because I just feel like going into the season, it's always been a need for middle linebacker. Cole Holcomb has not done anything to further prove that he should be playing or starting at linebacker for this team. You're going to need to address that position next year. Might as well get him in the rotation now, see how he plays, and if you want to extend him, cool. If you don't,
That's where I was getting at, because I was like, I can't keep Roquan, Cole, and Jamin, and David and John. Like, that's where I'm at. Like, that's why I was saying a draft pick. I understand the draft pick, but you gotta give somebody up too.
I mean, you could have gave up Cole. I mean, what Baltimore gave up a free agent linebacker that they probably just got.
Maybe William Jackson with that contract.
Virgil. Yeah, you could have gave up Jackson. You could give up somebody. I'm just saying, like, at this point, I would want to see somebody else at linebacker. But at the same token, this is not an innovative front office that would make those type of moves. And that's also what I was kind of even trying to allude to Disco on Twitter in regards to Deron Payne. Like, this is not an organization that is thinking ahead of the curve in any aspect. Like, even take that running back position. It's filled up with guys. And you're pretty much asking Antonio Gibson to do J.D. McKissick's position that he had last year. Why not get rid of one of them, and get some type of value?
I agree. I think they could trade McKissick, and I think that, but again, Ron operates without a sense of urgency. It's let me take my time. Let me just, let me keep everybody at bay. Let me get mad when people ask.
Why are you mad? Antonio, why are you even mad at that? Like, people are reaching out to you about Antonio Gibson. It ain't like you out there saying, hey, what you want for Antonio. Like, what the hell are you mad about?
Yeah.
I mean, I was just adding.
No. I was done. I was done. No, I agree. I agree with you, AJ. I do. I mean, I do think that. But again, there's just this lack of urgency, man. I just think it swirls around the owner, and we focus on him, and coaches can sit back and kick their feet up. Mike Shanahan did it.
Yeah, because I mean, if you even look, Colts traded Nyheim Hines, who is pretty much like J.D. McKissick, and Buffalo already wanted McKissick. They signed him to a deal, pretty much. Why couldn't you have got a 5th-round pick for J.D.? Because you're using Antonio Gibson just like you were using J.D. McKissick in his role last year. It does not make sense to have 4 running backs.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, as far as the Roquan Smith, I think any team in the NFL would have loved to have Roquan. And I mean, he would have been good here. I would have been excited if we would have got him. But like to Jamal's point, you can't keep Cole Holcomb if that's the case. But I thought the bigger need and something I would have been more pressing about around the trade deadline was seeing who had an available corner. That would have been my trade deadline wish. Like, to me, that's bigger than linebacker right now. I think that's just the biggest weakness you have in that defense right now is the corner position. And, depending on what happens after the season, I mean, obviously you're going to be back in the quarterback market again, in the offseason. But some point you're going to have to address cornerback. Like, you know, you're going to need a stud cornerback to solidify that pass defense. But actually, you know, before we did get out of here, I had wanted to hear Jamal's thoughts because he had tweeted something earlier about Taylor Heineke. I wanted him to kind of tell us, you know, about what he saw in that that last drive.
That last drive, I ain't gonna lie to you, bro. I said I like that. Looking at, I had just got done watching it too, and I tweeted that out. I was like, bro, that last drive was borderline elite. Like, it really was. It was, and I said the only thing that was keeping me from saying that last drive was elite was the fact that that final throw wasn't perfect. I think it got the job done, meaning like it got to Terry McLaurin, and he gave Terry McLaurin an opportunity to make a play. But if that throw is, if that final throw is perfect, then you're talking about an elite drive. I think it even starts like looking at how I charted that thing, and even starting just from the beginning of the drive, bro. You start out in inside your own 20, and on a 2nd and 4, you're like, if you all have the all 22, try to look at the end zone angle, and you can see what I'm talking about. There are not that many quarterbacks with pocket awareness and the level of instinct, like quick instinctive ability to get out of that pressure that he got out of and made what would have been a 2 or 3 yard sack into a 1 yard gain. Like, that kept you in a 2nd and 6 to a 3rd and 5. And then you get into a 4th down situation eventually, and you get Curtis Samuel on a 4th and 1. You find him after extending the play, eluding pressure, right? You're eluding and evading in the pocket and getting outside of the pocket and extending the play, where Curtis Samuel also makes a play, right? He understands it's a scramble drill time. He has to find a space to get open. He gets open on the 2nd level. Taylor Heineke finds him, gives him an accurate ball under pressure in a pressure moment, delivers that pass. Again, that was a pressure play. After that, you get a dagger call. Cam Sims. Matter of fact, I think it's 2 plays back to back. Either way, you get a after that 4th down call, you drop back, you get pressure. Again, you roll to your left. You sail that you want to send somebody deep. That's the arm movement that you saw when he's scrambling for 9 yards. He evades that pressure, ends up getting 9 yards, or 9 or 10 yards, gets a 1st down. And then that very 1st down is when you get that dagger call, a 26-yard completion in rhythm, in phase, in timing, with great anticipation. Like, everything clicked on that last drive for Taylor Heineke. That dagger call was incredible. It was on the money. The pass was accurate. He was able to get that pass off. Again, dealing with some type of pressure, but still getting the pass off in less than like 2 or 3 seconds. And then after that is when you have the Taylor Heineke play eventually, where you're trying to buy some time. And a lot of people like think about they think about the catch and they think about the throw. But in order to even make that throw, he's extending the play in the pocket. Like, that's all makings of a very good quarterback play, trying to buy some time for your team, still surveying and understanding what's at your feet as well. Like, everything that he did on that drive, bro, that shit was great. That shit was really good. So yeah, I had to give him his credit on that, man. I don't know, like, there was like 3 times on that drive where I say 70. I think I got to go a little bit higher. I would probably say like 85% of the quarterbacks in this league get sacked. I'm not lying, and I stand by that. I'll stand 10 toes on that. Like, some of the shit that he did on that drive, bro, I gotta give him credit for it. Like, that was a very good last drive for the Commanders, bro. It was impressive to see.
So I wanted to question, I mean, because you had, mentioned that, and I thought I saw a really good quarterback play, obviously, in those last 2 drives as well. But something I was thinking about, can Scott Turner do more to get him going earlier than he gets going in games?
I mean, somebody asked me, like, because a lot of people, in the responses, they said he got to play up tempo, and somebody asked, can he just run up tempo all game? So, truth be told, like, people gotta understand, like, I gave Heineke credit for that last drive, but at the end of the day, he is really on Heineke to get the job done sometimes. Like, that second quarter where he almost threw that interception where he sailed it to JD McKissick, that was just a bad decision. Like you're rolling to your right and JD McKissick's on your left and you try to make that pass and you sail it. That ain't a Scott Turner thing, but to your point, to answer your point directly, can he do something different or try to help him out a little bit more? We got to understand that Turner is who he is. Like his structure of the offense is going to remain the same. He's not a guy who's really going to adjust it. And I think to an extent he has adjusted. Like some of the ways that they influence the run game, like that option play pitch to Curtis Samuel was an influence in terms of how to get Heineke involved on the edge, but also like use him as a run threat. And then you have ways where like we always talk about moving the pocket with him. Sometimes he does it naturally. Taylor Heineke does. Sometimes, Scott Turner has to tell him, hey, we're going to call this bootleg or something. I don't know. But really within the structure of the offense, Heineke really just has to execute. And to be honest with you, I there were some moments where he didn't look too good. I noted them. I actually tweeted them out. But for the most part, it's really the matter of like, can you execute from a Q1 all the way to Q4 thing for Taylor? And I think that's just the biggest thing. It really boils down to the player. In my opinion, Dre, it really boils down to the player. And I think that's the issue that we come across with Carson. That's the issue that we come across with Taylor. Like they just aren't consistent enough. And if you can get somebody who can really execute and be headstrong for all 4 quarters consistently, like it's not going to happen every game, but if you can get that like 70-80% of your games, then you good.
I think to the point of adjustment, though, I think that I don't think that Ron or Scott truly trust either one of these quarterbacks. You don't see Taylor Heineke throwing to the middle of the field too much. Now you can say, well, that might not be where he shines, but I think that in the Green Bay game, there was some adjustments with throwing in the flats. If you look at the last game, throwing the Antonio Gibson until they kind of clamped down on it, on some of those swing passes. So they're letting Taylor throw more to the flat than across the middle of the field, which is where he gets in trouble. So I do see some adjustments. The big issue that I had with Scott Turner were the play calls after the last turnover. And I think he called 2 straight running plays, and it was like a 3 and out. And I think they should have taken a shot deep, but I don't know. I'm not Scott Turner's not stellar. I think that of course, most offensive coordinators, when the plays don't work, they're jerks and they need to be fired. And when the plays work, they're geniuses. So, that's just how it goes.
Yeah. Well, for all those who do look at the Commanders morning show, the film session is tomorrow morning. So we're going to talk about everything. We're going to show everything and talk about everything. So Disco, appreciate you riding out for the last 30 or so minutes.
Thank you, fellas.
Dre,
I appreciate it.
absolutely.
AJ, I owe you one, man. I owe you one. You snuck one in on me. I'm getting old, man. I wouldn't let you, if I could see your face. I
would say, look, you done seen
That's okay.
So long enough.
We got AJ with the Heineke
laptop.
talk. So AJ pissed right now. We got him with the Heineke talk. That's why I had to.
I was just like, damn, why we over here talking about Taylor Heineke like he's Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson or something at this final moment? But,
hey man, well look, you couldn't tell who was who after that last draft.
Oh yeah. On that cue, fellas,
I said that. Yeah, I said that.
AJ, who's your team, AJ?
Who's my team?
Yeah, who's your team?
It's Washington.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, okay. I'll just checking. Hey, bro.
Man, I just pray for the day for a quarterback, man.
Yeah, no
pray
bull.
for the day for a quarterback. I'm so tired of it.
That's a fact. All right, so the fellas will be back Thursday. We're previewing the Commanders and Vikings. Disco, man, you take it easy. You stay safe, big dog. Appreciate you checking in as always, man. And y'all boys, AJ, Dre, y'all enjoy y'all evening. Everybody in the chat, y'all enjoy y'all evening. We'll be back Thursday. Y'all be safe. Peace.
All right, be safe.